Could this potentially be the next allied race? Could this be the next expansion? Could this be the next Forsaken leader? Hey guys, Gongrongzong here. So the internet has been blowing up quite a bit about the leaks from the Before the Storm novel. Just as a heads up, this video is obviously going to contain quite a bit of spoilers for it, so if you're planning to read the book in its original form, you might want to save this video till after you've read it. Now there have been quite a few videos already that have thoroughly covered the content of the book, so I'll just do a quick TLDR here for the benefit of those of you who haven't been caught up to speed yet. Timestamps are in the description if you wanna skip ahead. The novel, Before the Storm by Christie Golden, has quite a few of its pages put up on Amazon as a preview. The novel details the events right after the defeat of the Legion and the lead up to Battle for Azeroth and the burning of Teldrassil. The most significant event that occurs is that Sylvanas and Anduin arrange for a meeting between a group of Forsaken, known as the Desolate Council, and their human relatives from Stormwind, allowing them to reconnect with each other for the first time since Arthas destroyed Lordaeron. However, due to the presence of Calia Menethil, Arthas' sister, Sylvanas goes back on her word and slaughters all of the Forsaken that were present at the meeting, branding them as traitors. Calia Menethil is also slain in the process, but then later resurrected by the combined might of Anduin, Alonso's Fall, and the Naaru, Sarah, turning her into a new form of undead, something like a light-fused undead version. Many things can be drawn from the events of the novel, but I've distilled what I think to be the top 5. So here we go. Number 1. Sylvanas might be replaced by Calia as the Forsaken leader. The entire novel seems to be building up towards this theme. For one, Calia is the rightful leader of the people of Lordaeron, of which the vast majority of the Forsaken comprise of. Secondly, she was present at the meeting for this very purpose. She believed, with some coaxing from the Naaru, that it was now her personal destiny to lead the Forsaken into a new age, an age whereby the Forsaken would be led by a benevolent leader of the light, that is, herself instead of Sylvanas. Unfortunately, her impromptu rebellion got her and the members of the Desolate Council killed, but not without showcasing to us, the reader, that she is determined to fulfill this newfound purpose, and is willing to go to great personal cost in order to liberate her people. This is epitomized in her memorable quote, "A Menethil had done this, a Menethil would have to fix it." She believes with all her heart that she is meant to lead the Forsaken. Secondly, in the beginning of the novel, it explicitly mentions how Sylvanas does not personally seek to be war chief. Politics and being in the spotlight are undesirable to her, and all she wants to do is to seek isolation and solace within the bowels of the Undercity, so that she can continue with her personal work unmolested. It even hints at characters like Bane and Saurfang not giving her the full respect that her position deserves, and that they are likely candidates for the next war chief. If stepping down as a leader becomes a viable option to her survival, which is her primary goal, it's entirely possible that she might even step down from the position as the leader of the Forsaken to pursue her own agendas. Furthermore, the novel also directly showcases how the Forsaken are far from mindless beasts, but are in fact very much free to do and think as they like. Nathanos mentions this in a conversation with Sylvanas, citing the irony of how in giving her people free will, they now have the ability to rebel against her, which is exactly what happens in the climax of the novel. With the Forsaken free to choose their own paths, there is nothing stopping a new leader of the Forsaken from stepping up, as they are not directly bound to Sylvanas in any way. And what better leader than a now undead rightful heir to the throne of Lordaeron? In addition to this, her stepping up to be the leader of the Forsaken would help immensely in ensuring peace talks could ensue between the Horde and Alliance. Those that desire peace in the Horde, such as Bane and Saurfang, would likely approve of such a decision, and the leaders of the Alliance, such as Anduin and Greymane, would undoubtedly prefer to have a close friend like her on the opposing faction. Number 2. Taelia Fordragon could be Calia's and Bolvar's child. Now this is a bit of speculation, but hear me out. We know that Taelia is now slated to return in Battle for Azeroth, and that we'll meet her in Kul Tiras as Alliance players. Taelia was born and raised in Lordaeron, but it was said that she lost her mother during the Scourge invasion. Calia Menethil, who was also at Lordaeron at the time, was thought to have been killed. However, we now obviously know that this is untrue, as she had managed to hide from the Scourge in a muddy trench for a couple of days before escaping. On page 253 of the novel, it shows Calia thinking about her child that she had not seen since the destruction of Lordaeron. It also says in the next sentence that her husband, Davao Prestor, had kept her secret for her. This marriage, however, had been forced upon her by her father, King Terenas Menethil, and was not something she desired. What exactly is this secret? Why bother bringing up these points in the novel at this time, right before Battle for Azeroth? Why is she reminiscing about her child that she has not seen for so many years, just before we go to Kul Tiras and meet up with Taelia? These lead me to believe that she may have had a secret child with Bolvar, who will be none other than Taelia Fordragon. Both Calia and Bolvar were humans of great status and standing at the time, and it makes sense that they would get to know each other very well in the royal palace. Again, I may be wrong on this, but the points do seem to add up and point to this outcome as being kinda plausible. Number 3. A possible return of the Lich King. Now that we've gone through how Calia might be related to Bolvar, there is just too much evidence to ignore for a return of the Lich King, whether it be in terms of a major story arc, or perhaps even in the next expansion following Battle for Azeroth. If the previous theory is true, Calia has all the reason in the world to reunite with Bolvar and her daughter, prompting the re-entry of the Lich King into the storyline. Arthas Menethil, Bolvar Fordragon, and now Calia Menethil are all now linked to the Frozen Throne in more ways than one. They were all citizens of Lordaeron of high nobility, they were all victims of the Scourge, they are all related to one another, and now they are all undead. In addition to this, numerous signs also point to the Lich King's impending return. His influence in the Death Knight Order Hall campaign, in raising up new Death Knight champions, is a clear foreshadowing that he is far from being out of the picture and is very willing to meddle in the affairs of Azeroth. The return of the Sand Lane in Battle for Azeroth, yet another iconic element of Icecrown Citadel, is indicative of some sort of re-entry of the Northrend experience. Furthermore, the Valkyr have also found a way at the beginning of the Legion expansion to restore Nathanos to a new flesh form, opening up doors to a new form of undead, very similar to what Calia Menethil currently represents. However, I don't believe that Blizzard would just reintroduce Bolvar as the new big bad in an upcoming expansion and repeat the whole process of what occurred in Wrath of the Lich King. They would have to do something slightly different, and this is what I think it may be. Calia, being infused with the light, may reach out to Bolvar and try to convert him over to the light side. Let's not forget, Bolvar is also a union of both life and death, born of Dragonfire and the Lich King's powers. Considering how Calia is an extension of the Naaru, Saras, powers, and considering how Bolvar is probably not as powerful as Arthas as he is lacking Frostmourne, this has some potential to happen. Taelia, as his daughter, may also be able to shock him out of his stasis. Arthas has already been shown to keep a locket of Jaina when we defeated him, indicating that the whole of the Lich King is not complete over the individual. They still do clearly retain some of their humanity. Regardless of whether Calia is related to Bolvar or not, she may still undergo this process of seeking the Lich King out, as she still feels it is her responsibility as the last Menethil to fix this situation with the Forsaken and the Scourge once and for all. This would result in two potential outcomes. Bolvar would either reject her and descend further into madness, or he might accept her proposal and be cleansed by the light. This would cause a crazy and somewhat speculative but not unfounded scenario of Bolvar joining up with the forces of the Alliance. This segues into the next point. Number 4. A potential Alliance undead allied race. Blizzard has shown to be very open and willing to give elves to both factions. Night Elves now exist in the Horde in the form of Nightborn, and High Elves now exist in the Alliance in the form of Void Elves. Who is to say that they aren't planning to have a form of undead join up with the Alliance, especially after the events of the novel whereby it showcases Forsaken being lovingly accepted back by the citizens and leaders of Stormwind. Remember, the strongest reason why the Forsaken hate the humans of the Alliance is because they believe they had abandoned them due to their horrid appearances. However, this point is made mostly moot through the events of the novel. Similar to the experience we have when we first make an Alliance Death Knight, we may at first have been scorned by the citizens of Stormwind, but are later accepted through the approval of Varian, the king at the time. The same could now be said of Anduin, who was more than happy to go through Sylvanas' plan in reuniting the families of the Desolate Council. Calia Menethil, in her unique position in being both undead and the rightful heir of Lordaeron, could easily lead a rebellious sect of Forsaken that no longer wished to follow Sylvanas. Their ability to retain free will clearly demonstrates that this is possible, backed up heavily by how in the novel, when Sylvanas sounded her horn for the retreat, many Forsaken actually ran towards the Alliance side when Calia exclaimed to them that they would be welcome to join back with their families in the Alliance. In addition to this, let's not forget, light-infused undead beings actually already exist in WoW, and they are none other than the Valkyr that we encounter in Legion on Stormhain and the Halls of Valor. The original Valkyr, and not the shadowy ones created by Arthas, are spirits of Vrykul warriors raised by Odin to serve as warriors of the light. They are benevolent and virtuous by nature, of which their main role is to usher in the souls of Vrykul heroes into the great halls of valor. So it is definitely not out of this world for another great being of light, like the Naaru, to raise a light-infused undead such as Calia, and perhaps even usher in more of such resurrections, or perhaps even perform a cleansing ritual on the current Forsaken, a mirror process of what has happened to Nathanos Blightcaller, turning them into whole and fleshy undead light-infused beings. Speaking of the Naaru, this leads us to our last point. Number 5. The Naaru are getting more and more manipulative. This is the clearest point of all from the novel. The Naaru, specifically Sarah, is evidently up to something that suits her own agenda, encouraging and manipulating multiple characters in the novel, such as Anduin, Calia, and Alonso's Fall to do her bidding. Without the inspiration from Sarah, it is questionable whether Calia would have instigated the revolt in the first place. Without the Light's encouragement that this was all meant to be, there is no way Anduin would have so easily come to terms with Sylvanas' aggression and the death of Calia. And without Sarah's instructions, Alonso's Fall would never have contributed his skills to the raising of Calia into a new form of light-infused undead. From what we know, the Naaru are by all accounts the ultimate physical manifestations of the light. Somewhat a counterpart to the old gods, they embody all that the light represents. And if Illidan's interaction with Xerath is to serve as a foreshadowing, it would seem that the light, in the form of the Naaru, are becoming more and more manipulative. Now, don't get me wrong, throughout the history of WoW, the Naaru have been seen to be by and large benevolent, kind, and generous. I don't doubt that their intentions are more closely aligned towards the morally good spectrum. However, if Yerl and the WOD Draenei's conversion is anything of an indication, it does seem that the proponents of the light can at times turn fanatical in order to achieve its purposes. Similar to the Scarlet Crusade, one may claim that these individuals are simply misguided. That may be true, but it also doesn't negate the fact that the light can still be channeled by individuals to commit heinous and evil deeds, putting into question its truly morally good basis. Is the light truly only a force for good, or is it something much more sinister, good by nature, but yet still willing to enforce its will and selfish agenda for the ultimate victory over the void? Is this the Naaru's plan for Calia to take over Sylvanas and form a light-infused Forsaken army for the light? Could this be an overall plan to create a light-infused Lich King, with Calia being the one to convert Bolvar, providing the light with an endless stream of corpses to raise as warriors? The possibilities are of course endless, as is the number of speculative theories, but what we know for sure is that the light, specifically the Naaru Sara, wants Calia to be this new light-infused undead and to lead her people into a new dawn. Whether or not the intention ends there, or there is something more malicious at stake, remains to be seen. And that's a wrap. Those are the top 5 takeaways I got from the preview of the novel. I'm sure there are more, and if you know of any, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Azeroth.